She built their empire, but they cast her aside for youth. What they didn't know? Sandra Evans held the key to their ruin. From a quiet firing to a stunning coup, this is tech's ultimate underdog tale. Want to see justice code its way to victory? Watch on. The sleek conference room on the 14th floor of Apex Innovations headquarters buzzed faintly under the hum of fluorescent lights, a sterile glow casting sharp shadows across the glass table that dominated the space. The walls, lined with frosted panels etched with the company's logo, a stylized A piercing a digital horizon, reflected the muted ambition of a tech giant that had long traded innovation for polish. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city skyline stretched under a gray morning sky, a patchwork of steel and glass that mirrored Apex's cold efficiency. Sandra Evans sat at one end of the table, her posture steady, her hands resting lightly on the armrests of her chair. At 55, her rich brown skin carried a subtle warmth beneath the artificial light, her silver-streaked hair pulled into a low, practical bun that spoke of years spent prioritizing function over flair. Her gray blouse and navy skirt were understated, a deliberate choice, professional yet unassuming, a shield against the corporate gaze that often prized youth over depth. Across from her sat Evelyn Harper, Director of Human Resources, her thin frame perched stiffly in her seat, a practiced smile curving her lips. The expression didn't reach her hazel eyes, which glinted with a barely concealed note of satisfaction. A predator savoring the moment before the strike. Beside her, Clara Nguyen from HR balanced a stack of folders, her face a carefully crafted mask of neutral sympathy. Her dark hair pulled into a tight ponytail that mirrored the company's rigid structure. The air between them was heavy, laden with the unspoken weight of a decision already made, and Sandra felt it settle like a stone in her chest, not from surprise, but from the inevitability she'd foreseen. After 15 years with Apex Innovations, we're realigning your role, Sandra, Evelyn announced, her voice crisp, cutting through the hum with a tone that carried the faintest edge of triumph. She leaned forward slightly, her manicured fingers tapping the table once, as if punctuating the finality of her words. It's part of a broader restructuring effort, streamlining for efficiency. Clara nodded, sliding a manila envelope across the glass surface with a practiced flick of her wrist, her eyes avoiding Sandra's. The company's shifting focus, she added, her voice softer, rehearsed. We're merging the research division into product development under a unified team. The envelope stopped inches from Sandra's hands, its edges crisp, its contents a silent guillotine she didn't need to open to understand. Sandra accepted it with a nod, her fingers brushing the paper without breaking eye contact, her expression calm, a stillness that belied the storm she'd been bracing for. Inside, she knew, lay the standard severance package, 2 weeks' pay for every year of service, 30 weeks total, 3 months of continued health coverage, and a list of career counseling resources she'd never use. 15 years distilled into a folder, a tidy exit for a woman who'd built the backbone of Apex's success. I understand, she said, her voice steady, a smooth cadence that carried no hint of the turmoil they might have expected. These decisions are never easy. Relief flickered across Evelyn's face, a brief softening of her sharp features. She'd braced for tears, protests, perhaps a flare of anger from a 55-year-old woman being edged out of an industry that worshipped youth over experience. Clara's shoulders relaxed subtly, her mask of sympathy slipping into something closer to genuine ease. They didn't know, couldn't know, that Sandra had seen this coming. Weeks ago, a misdirected email thread had landed in her inbox, a careless slip from Evelyn to Miles Grayson, Apex's CEO. Sandra's role redundant post-consolidation, finalized by month's end, it read, buried among jargon about strategic alignment and youth-driven innovation. She'd read it late at night, the glow of her laptop screen casting shadows across her apartment, and felt not shock, but clarity, a puzzle piece snapping into place. She'd kept it quiet, her poker face honed over years of navigating boardroom politics, waiting for the moment they'd spring their trap. We'd like your desk cleared by Friday, Evelyn continued, her confidence swelling as Sandra's calm disarmed her expectations. Keycard, company laptop, and phone. Please turn them in before you leave. Your team will be notified this afternoon. Sandra's lips curved faintly. Not a smile, but an acknowledgement. Her team, 6 brilliant engineers she'd handpicked and mentored, minds she'd shaped into a unit that had birthed the distributed processing algorithm powering Apex's flagship product, CountSphere. Over 40% of Fortune 500 companies relied on it, a silent titan she'd crafted, only to watch Miles claim it as his own at last year's tech conference with a vague nod to our research team. "Of course," Sandra said, rising from her chair, her movements fluid despite the weight of the moment. "Is there anything else?" Evelyn and Clara exchanged a glance, thrown by her composure. Where was the outrage, the pleading they'd steeled themselves against? Evelyn recovered first, smoothing her skirt as she stood. "That's all for now," she said, her tone brisk. "Thank you for keeping this civil, Sandra. It makes things smoother for everyone." Clara offered a tight nod, stacking her folders with a soft rustle, her role as silent enforcer complete. Sandra turned, the manila envelope tucked under her arm, and walked back to her office through Apex's glass-lined corridors. The hum of keyboards and muted conversations followed her, a familiar rhythm she'd shaped over 15 years. As she passed the executive suite, a glass-walled fortress, she caught sight of Miles Grayson inside, gesturing animatedly at a PowerPoint slide titled Q3 Revenue Projections. His broad shoulders strained his tailored suit, his voice a distant boom through the transparent barrier, touting numbers her algorithm had made possible. Last year, at the National Tech Conference, he'd basked in applause for CountSphere, relegating her to one of our research team members, a footnote to his spotlight. She'd stood in the back then, silent, her contribution a ghost in his glory. She closed her office door with a soft click, the familiar space a cocoon of quiet amid the corporate churn, her desk cluttered with family photos, a mug from her team inscribed Code Queen, an award for the algorithm gleaming in its corner. Setting the envelope aside, she pulled her personal phone from her purse and typed a single text. "It's happening. Friday's my last day." The reply pinged back instantly. "Perfect timing. Contract's ready. Dinner tonight?" A faint smile curved her lips as she glanced at her desk calendar. Wednesday stared back, 2 days until her exit, and beyond that, a Monday that promised to be anything but ordinary. She stood again, crossing to a filing cabinet where she kept personal notes, her fingers brushing a locked drawer, a habit from years of safeguarding ideas. The email leak had been her wake-up call, a carelessly forwarded thread from Evelyn to Miles. Sandra's role redundant, finalized by month's end. She'd read it late one night, the laptop's glow illuminating her apartment, and felt not shock but clarity, a puzzle piece snapping into place. They thought her expendable, a relic in a youth-driven industry, but they'd missed the quiet power she'd been cultivating. Friday would mark her last day at Apex, but Monday loomed with a promise she'd crafted in secret, a reckoning they couldn't fathom. As she began sorting her desk, stacking photos, wrapping the mug in tissue paper, her mind shifted to the dinner ahead. Daniel Pierce, CEO of Nexus Tech, Apex's fiercest rival, had been her ally since she'd uncovered the patent oversight 3 months ago. Tonight, they'd finalize her leap, a move that would turn Apex's betrayal into her triumph. She glanced at the calendar again, Wednesday 2 days left, and felt not dread but anticipation, her steady pulse a testament to the strength she'd honed over 15 years. The corporate cut had been their move. Hers was coming, and it would rewrite the board. The late afternoon light filtering through the glass towers beyond Apex Innovations headquarters, casting a muted glow across her desk. The calendar stared back. Wednesday circled in her mind, 2 days until her exit, and a Monday shimmering with promise. Her phone buzzed faintly in her purse, the earlier exchange with Daniel Pierce still fresh. "See you at 7. She'd slipped off her navy blazer, draping it over her chair, the weight of the day settling into her shoulders, not from defeat, but from the quiet anticipation humming beneath her skin. The corporate cut had been Apex's move, a cold severance delivered by Evelyn Harper's thin smile, and Clara Nguyen's practiced sympathy. But Sandra's countermove was poised to rewrite the game. She gathered her things, the manila envelope unopened, her personal items half-packed, and left the office, the hum of Apex fading behind her as she stepped into the elevator. By 6:45 p.m., she arrived at The Loft, an upscale restaurant nestled in a discreet corner of the city, far from Apex's gleaming downtown hub. The exterior was understated, dark brick and frosted windows, but inside, the air carried the rich scent of seared steak and aged wine, a haven for deals struck away from prying eyes. Sandra smoothed her blouse, her silver-streaked hair catching the soft light as she followed the hostess through a maze of candlelit tables. Daniel Pierce, CEO of Nexus Tech, Apex's fiercest rival, had reserved a private alcove in the back, shielded by elegant bamboo screens that whispered privacy with every rustle. He stood as she approached, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed, his gray suit sharp but unpretentious, a man who valued discretion as much as victory. "They really did it," Daniel said, shaking his head as they settled into the plush booth, his voice a low rumble of disbelief. The waiter poured water, retreating silently as Daniel leaned forward, elbows resting on the table. "Pushed out the mind behind their crown jewel. Unbelievable." Sandra sipped her water, the coolness steadying her, a faint smile curling her lips. "Miles never grasped what I built," she replied, her tone even, her hazel eyes glinting with quiet irony. He saw the shiny app, the user interface, the marketing buzz, CountSphere's surface. The architecture underneath, just tech stuff to him. Daniel chuckled, a dry sound that carried years of watching competitors stumble. The irony's almost poetic. 3 months ago, Sandra had uncovered the flaw that set this night in motion. A patent application for her distributed processing algorithm, the heart of CountSphere, had never been filed by Apex's legal team. She'd noticed it during a routine audit, a gap in the documentation that prickled her instincts. When she'd inquired, the response had been vague. "An oversight, we'll handle it." But the unease lingered, a warning bell she couldn't ignore. Digging deeper on her personal laptop late one night, she'd found a strategy memo buried in Apex's internal servers. Claim algorithm as company-developed tech, no specific inventor attribution, phase out Evans post-consolidation. The words had glowed on her screen, a betrayal in black and white, and she'd felt not shock but a cold clarity, a chessboard tilting in her favor. "They didn't know I'd refined it," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial murmur as she met Daniel's gaze. "On my own time, my own equipment, 43% faster processing efficiency. I patented those upgrades myself last month." Her fingers brushed the edge of her glass, steady as ever, a spark of pride flickering beneath her calm. "Timestamps, logs, all on my personal drives, outside their reach. Your IP attorney pushed it through fast." Daniel's grin widened, a glint of admiration in his blue eyes as he slid a sleek folder across the table. "Sign this," he said, "and Nexus locks exclusive rights. Press release drops Monday morning. You're our Chief Innovation Officer." Sandra opened the folder, her eyes scanning the terms she'd already memorized. A 7-figure signing bonus, substantial equity in Nexus Tech, ongoing royalties from products using her algorithm. The ink glistened as she signed the final page, her pen a quiet declaration of independence, the bamboo screens rustling faintly as if in approval. She closed the folder and leaned back, the weight of 15 years at Apex lifting like a fog burned off by sunrise. "What about my team?" she asked, her tone shifting to concern. 6 engineers, brilliant minds I recruited. They don't deserve the fallout." Daniel nodded, sipping his wine. "Already addressed, offers for all 6, senior roles, big raises. They're yours if they want in." The waiter returned, setting plates of grilled salmon and roasted vegetables before them, the aroma mingling with the tension of their pact. Sandra picked up her fork, her mind racing through the details. 3 months ago, she'd checked Apex's patent status after that vague legal dodge, her suspicion confirmed by the memo. She'd acted fast, refining her algorithm on late nights in her apartment, her personal laptop humming with code that boosted efficiency beyond what Apex had ever seen. The patent had been her shield, granted with Daniel's help, a top-tier IP attorney cutting through red tape with surgical speed. "They plan to bury me under company-developed branding," she said, cutting into her meal. "Push me out before securing it, thinking I'd fade quietly." Daniel's eyes narrowed, a strategist sizing up a rival's misstep. Victor Lawson's ego blinded him, never saw your value beyond the UI he could flaunt. He set his glass down, leaning in. "Monday, when Nexus announces, Apex will scramble, CountSphere's dead without your tech." Sandra nodded, her smile faint but firm. "They'll negotiate or rebuild. Either way, they lose ground. I've got my logs, my patent, ironclad. The folder sat between them, a testament to her foresight, a weapon forged in silence. Victor's face when he realizes, Daniel mused, satisfaction curling his lips. Priceless. I'm more worried about my team, Sandra admitted, her fork pausing midair. They're blindsided today, Miles notifying them this afternoon. Daniel's grin softened. They'll be fine. Those offers are generous. Nexus needs them, and you. We're building something bigger. She exhaled, the knot in her chest easing slightly. Her 6 engineers, her legacy at Apex, would have a lifeline. The meal continued, their conversation shifting to logistics, press timing, team transitions. But beneath it, a quiet pact solidified. Friday, she'd walk out of Apex for the last time. Monday, she'd rise with Nexus, her algorithm's true home. As they clinked glasses, water to wine, the screens shielded their triumph, a secret poised to rewrite the tech world's map. The clink of Sandra Evans' water glass against Daniel Pierce's wine reverberated softly in the private alcove of the loft, the bamboo screens rustling faintly, as if sealing their pact in the upscale restaurant's discreet embrace. The candlelight flickered across the table, casting a warm glow on the sleek folder Sandra had just signed, her ticket out of Apex Innovations' betrayal and into Nexus Tech's future. She leaned back in the plush booth, the rich aroma of grilled salmon lingering as she met Daniel's gaze, his blue eyes glinting with a mix of admiration and anticipation. To new beginnings, he'd said, raising his glass, and she'd echoed, and to owning your own value, her voice steady, a quiet vow woven into the toast. The words hung between them, a testament to the shift she'd engineered, a leap from corporate discard to industry titan. Daniel set his glass down, the faint clink against the table punctuating the moment as he leaned forward, elbows resting casually on the edge. They really thought they could bury you, he said, his tone a low rumble of disbelief, shaking his head. 15 years, and they didn't see what they had. Victor Lawson's arrogance is staggering. Sandra's lips curved into a faint smile, her hazel eyes catching the candle's flicker with a spark of irony. He never did, she replied, her voice calm but edged with a steel honed over those years. Miles saw Count Sphere's flashy interface, the revenue charts, the applause at conferences, but the engine underneath, the distributed processing algorithm, that was just noise to him, lines of code he couldn't be bothered to understand. The waiter cleared their plates, leaving them with coffee as the conversation deepened. Logistics, press timing, team transitions, but beneath it, a quiet pact solidified. Victor's face when he realizes, Daniel mused again, satisfaction curling his lips as he swirled his coffee. Priceless. Sandra's smile returned, broader now. I'm not here for his face. I'm here for what's mine, and my team's future. She lifted her cup, the steam curling upward like a promise. To owning it, finally. Daniel clinked his mug against hers, the sound a soft seal on their alliance. Friday, she'd walk out of Apex. Monday, she'd rise with Nexus, her unseen leverage a blade that would cut deeper than they'd ever imagined. Sandra Evans left the loft with the faint clink of coffee cups still ringing in her ears, the bamboo screens whispering shut behind her as she stepped into the cool night air. The pact with Daniel Pierce, CEO of Nexus Tech, burned bright in her mind, the signed folder tucked securely in her purse, a tangible weight against her hip. To owning it. Finally, she'd said, her mug meeting his in a quiet toast, sealing her leap from Apex Innovations' betrayal to a future where her algorithm's true value would shine. The city skyline glittered beyond the restaurant's discreet corner, a maze of steel and glass she'd navigated for 15 years. And as she drove home, her hazel eyes glinted with a resolve that had deepened over dinner, a calm sharpened by the knowledge that Friday would mark her last day at Apex and Monday her rise with Nexus. Thursday dawned gray and brisk, the hum of Apex's headquarters greeting her as she stepped off the elevator onto the 14th floor. The glass corridors buzzed with a subdued energy, keyboard clicks, muffled voices, the faint whir of printers churning out reports. Sandra moved through it with a steady gait, her gray blouse and navy skirt a familiar uniform now tinged with finality. The manila envelope from Evelyn Harper sat unopened on her desk, its contents a severance package she'd acknowledged but never needed to study. 30 weeks' pay, 3 months of health coverage, Career resources she'd discard. She'd accepted it with a nod 2 days ago, her voice steady. I understand. Disarming Evelyn and Clara Nguyens braced for drama expectations, their relief palpable in the conference room's sterile air. She sank into her chair, the worn leather creaking softly, and began sorting her desk with methodical care. Family photos, a faded shot of her parents at a lakeside picnic, a candid of her niece beaming with a gap-toothed grin, went into a small cardboard box first, their frames nestled between layers of tissue paper. The Code Queen mug her team had gifted her last Christmas followed, wrapped carefully. Its looping script a quiet tribute to the 6 engineers she'd mentored into brilliance. An award for her distributed processing algorithm gleamed in the corner, its plaque. Outstanding contribution to CountSphere. A bitter irony she'd once swallowed silently as Miles Grayson claimed the spotlight. She lifted it, tracing the engraved words with a finger, then packed it too, her smile faint but firm. This triumph would soon bear her name alone. The day blurred into a procession of exit rituals, meetings with junior staff for knowledge transfers, her voice calm as she outlined processes she'd perfected over years. The server logs are here, she told a wide-eyed coder, pointing to a shared drive, her tone devoid of the frustration she might have felt at Apex's oversight. Administrative assistants passed her in the halls, their glances soft with sympathy. Some whispered, "Sorry to see you go," their voices tinged with pity she didn't need. Junior developers approached awkwardly, hovering by her door. "Could you write me a LinkedIn recommendation before you leave?" one asked, his cheeks flushing. "Of course," she replied, her fingers tapping out endorsements with a precision that masked her amusement. Her legacy at Apex would linger, even as she walked away. Her team, 6 engineers she'd recruited and shaped, had been notified Wednesday afternoon. Miles's email, a curt announcement of restructuring. She hadn't seen their reactions yet, hadn't heard their shock or questions, but she felt their absence like a hollow ache as she documented their projects. Passwords, workflows, code repositories. She typed it all into a shared file, her diligence a shield against the chaos Apex would face without her. This wasn't kindness, it was evidence. A record of her good faith when they'd offered none. A breadcrumb trail they'd stumble over too late. She paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, and glanced at the clock. 4:30 p.m., Thursday slipping into its final hours. Friday arrived with a crisp edge, the sky clearing to a pale blue as Sandra stepped into Apex for the last time. Her box of belongings sat ready, the office stripped to its bones, save for the company laptop and phone on her desk. The morning passed in a haze of final handovers, engineers nodding as she walked them through systems, their questions tinged with a quiet respect she had earned, but Apex had ignored. At 2 p.m., Clara Nguyen appeared for the exit interview, her ponytail tight, her clipboard a shield of formality. "Standard checklist," Clara said, her voice mechanical as she slid an NDA across the table. "You understand any intellectual property developed during your employment stays with Apex?" Sandra's lips curved faintly, her hazel eyes meeting Clara's with a steady gaze. "Of course," she replied, her tone pleasant but deliberate. "Anything developed within the scope of my employment, using company resources, during company time." She emphasized the qualifiers, subtle, precise, a line Clara didn't catch, too busy ticking boxes to notice. "And you affirm you have no copies of proprietary company information?" Clara continued, her pen hovering. "I've taken nothing that belongs to Apex," Sandra confirmed, her words truthful, her patent, filed on her own time, her own equipment, safely beyond their grasp. She signed the NDA with a flourish, sliding it back, her calm unshaken. Clara nodded, satisfied, and left, her clipboard clutched tight. Sandra returned to her desk, packing the last items. The award nestled between tissue layers, a final irony she savored. Evelyn Harper appeared at the door, leaning against the frame with artificial ease, her thin smile back in place. "Just checking everything's clear for your departure," she said, her eyes scanning the nearly empty office. "Crystal clear," Sandra replied, wrapping the mug as Evelyn's gaze lingered. "You know, Sandra, these restructurings aren't personal. Miles wants a younger vibe." Sandra looked up, her smile serene. "I understand. Business is business. I've got something lined up. Start Monday, leadership role. Pretty excited." Evelyn blinked, surprise flickering across her sharp features, but she masked it quickly. "Oh, that's fast. Anything interesting?" Sandra's smile widened, a glint in her eyes. "Very. A step up. Good luck with the transition here." Evelyn nodded absently, already mentally elsewhere, and left. Sandra gathered her box, keycard, and devices, her final walk through Apex's corridors, a quiet farewell. She paused at the glass-walled executive suite, Miles gesturing at projections, oblivious, and stepped into the elevator, her pulse steady. Friday's end was hers alone. Monday's dawn belonged to her triumph. The elevator doors slid shut with a soft hiss, sealing Sandra Evans inside as she descended from the 14th floor of Apex Innovations for the last time. Her cardboard box rested against her hip. Family photos, the Code Queen mug, the Algorithm Award nestled in tissue paper. A quiet archive of 15 years boxed up in under an hour. The key card, company laptop, and phone she'd surrendered to Clara Nguyen minutes ago felt like shackles shed, their absence a lightness she hadn't expected. Friday's gray dusk pressed against the glass lobby as she stepped out, her navy skirt swaying faintly with each steady stride, her hazel eyes catching the last glint of Apex's towering facade in the rearview mirror as she drove away. Evelyn Harper's parting words, "Miles wants a younger vibe," echoed faintly, a hollow justification she'd dismissed with a serene, "I start Monday, leadership role." The surprise on Evelyn's sharp face had been a fleeting victory, but the real triumph loomed just days away. The weekend passed in a blur of quiet preparation. Saturday spent reviewing Nexus Tech's contract one last time, her fingers tracing the seven-figure signing, bonus, and equity terms Daniel Pierce had laid out at the loft. Sunday, she unpacked her box in her apartment, arranging the photos and mug on a shelf, the award gleaming beside them, a reminder of what she'd built and what she'd reclaim. Monday morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight streaming through her bedroom window as she dressed in a new charcoal suit, its sharp lines a power statement tailored for the day ahead. Her silver-streaked hair fell in soft waves, a deliberate shift from Apex's practical bun, and she slipped into heels that clicked with purpose on her hardwood floor. At precisely 7:30 a.m., a Nexus Tech town car pulled up outside, its driver nodding as she settled into the leather back seat, the city unfurling beyond the tinted windows on her way to a new battlefield. Nexus Tech's headquarters rose 8 miles from Apex, a modern tower of steel and glass, its open design a stark contrast to Apex's rigid polish. The lobby buzzed with a vibrant hum, engineers chatting over coffee, screens flickering with code, as Sandra stepped out, her purse slung over her shoulder, the signed contract a silent weight within. A young assistant, her badge reading Lila, greeted her with a warm smile. "Dr. Evans, welcome. Mr. Pierce is waiting upstairs." The elevator whisked her to the top floor, opening to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawling below like a canvas ready for her mark. Daniel stood by the desk, his gray suit crisp, his salt and pepper hair catching the light as he turned, a broad grin breaking across his face. "Right on time," he said, gesturing to a plush chair. Press release went live at 7 a.m. Industry's already buzzing. Sandra settled in, her hazel eyes glinting with quiet satisfaction as she glanced at the tablet Daniel handed her. The headline glowed, "Nexus Tech secures revolutionary algorithm, welcomes Dr. Sandra Evans as Chief Innovation Officer." The article detailed her patent, her role as sole creator, and Nexus's exclusive rights, a bombshell crafted with strategic precision. "Newsletters are picking it up," Daniel added, leaning back. "Tech journals, blogs, reactions are pouring in. Our comms team's tracking it all." She nodded, her smile faint but firm. "Good, let them feel the tremor." 8 miles away, Apex's executive suite would be waking to a nightmare, and she savored the thought. Not vengeance, but validation, a truth finally breaking free. Her phone buzzed, a text from Miguel, her lead engineer at Apex. "Chaos here. What did you do?" She typed back, her fingers swift. "Check your personal email. Offers for all 6 of you." She'd known Miles Grayson's Wednesday announcement, restructuring, had blindsided her team, and now they'd face the fallout of her exit. Daniel's pact from the loft echoed 6 senior roles, big raises, and she'd ensured their lifeline before Apex could scatter them. "They'll join us," she said, setting the phone down, her voice steady with certainty. "They're too good to waste there." Daniel's grin widened. "Building an empire already. Love it." Across town, Apex's Monday morning unraveled in real time. Miguel's next text arrived at 9:15. Complete meltdown, Victor's losing it. Sandra could picture it, Miles storming into his office, greeted not by routine reports but by the CFO and general counsel, their faces ashen as the press release hit their inboxes. The 9:30 executive meeting, meant for Q3 planning, spiraled into a crisis session, board members dialing in, legal scrambling for files, her algorithm's absence a gaping wound in CountSphere's core. Miguel's updates trickled through. "They're pulling every file with your name? Someone's wheeling in the research servers." Sandra forwarded them to Daniel, who chuckled. "They're grasping at straws, won't find what isn't there." By 10:45, her phone lit up with an email from Miles himself, the subject line stark. "Urgent discussion." "Sandra," it read, "there appears to be a misunderstanding. Please call me at your earliest convenience." She smirked, forwarding it to Nexus's legal team with a note, "Handle it," and turned her focus to her first meeting as CIO. The boardroom hummed with Nexus engineers, their faces alight with curiosity as she outlined her vision, her algorithm's next evolution, a leap Apex couldn't match. Lila interrupted at 11:30, her voice tentative. "Dr. Evans, Apex's CEO, has called twice. Says it's critical." Sandra's smile was serene. "Tell him I'm in meetings. Legal will reach out about licensing later this week." The day surged forward, industry buzz swelling, Apex's stock dipping 7% by noon, Nexus's soaring 12%. Miguel texted again, "All hands at 2, Victor's dodging questions, looks panicked." Sandra leaned back in her chair, the city sprawling below her new office windows, a quiet triumph settling in her bones. Apex's emergency unfolded, board members grilling Miles, legal flailing, while she stood at Nexus's helm, her unseen leverage a blade that had struck deep. Monday wasn't just a new start, it was a reckoning, and as she led her team into the future, Apex's past crumbled behind her, unprepared for the dawn she'd unleashed. She turned from the window, settling into her chair as the clock ticked past noon. Apex's stock dipping 7%, while Nexus's soared 12%. Numbers flashing on her tablet, a real-time scorecard of her unseen leverage. The press release had landed like a grenade, its blast rippling through industry newsletters and tech blogs. Headlines screaming, "Strategic coup shakes accounting software market." Daniel Pierce had called it priceless, Victor Lawson's inevitable realization. And Sandra savored it, her calm a steady anchor, as Apex floundered. Her assistant, Lila, had relayed Miles's calls. "Critical," he says. But Sandra's serene deflection, "Legal will reach out," kept her focus on Nexus. Her first meeting as CIO cementing her vision with a team eager to build on her algorithm's foundation. Her phone buzzed again, Miguel's next update at 1:15 p.m. Victor's sweating bullets, legal scrambling, boards on edge. She could see it, Miguel's play-by-play unfolding like a film in her mind. Miles pacing Apex's glass-walled executive suite, his tailored suit straining as he barked at Evelyn Harper and the legal team, their faces pale with the dawning weight of her absence. The 2 p.m. all-hands meeting loomed, a desperate bid to rally staff as CountSphere, Apex's flagship, her creation, teetered without its patented engine. She'd forwarded his earlier text, "All 6 of you have offers," to her team, their lifeline secured, and now she waited, her fingers tapping a steady rhythm on her desk for the chaos to deepen. By 2:30, Miguel's report hit. "Meeting's a mess. Victor tried confidence, but Q&A imploded." "Did we lose the patent?" someone asked. "Shut it down fast." Sandra's lips curved faintly, a wry smile breaking her calm as she pictured Miles's broad shoulders hunching, his voice faltering under the staff's scrutiny. CountSphere relied on her algorithm, 40% of Fortune 500 companies banking on its efficiency, and without licensing rights, Apex faced a rebuild or a costly deal with Nexus. She'd left meticulous notes Friday, passwords, processes, code paths, a trail of good faith they'd stumble over too late, evidence she'd played fair while they hadn't. "They're pulling files," Miguel added. "Legal's flipping out. Stock's down 10% now. She leaned back, the leather chair creaking softly, and glanced at the tablet. Nexus up 15%, Apex sliding further, the market punishing their oversight. 3 tech journals had emailed by 11 a.m., requesting interviews. How did you pull this off? And she'd tasked Lila with scheduling them for later in the week, her story poised to reshape the narrative Apex had buried. Her phone lit up again, this time an email from Miles at 2:45. Sandra, urgent, misunderstanding with the patent. Call me ASAP. She forwarded it to Nexus's legal team with a note, prep licensing terms, and turned to her next task, her calm unshaken as Apex's desperation mounted. 8 miles away, Apex's executive suite was a war zone. Miguel's texts rolled in like dispatches. Board's on a call, Victor's yelling about damage control. They're auditing every server you touched. She could see it, Evelyn pacing, her thin smile gone. Clara Nguyen clutching her clipboard out of her depth. Miles slamming a fist on the glass table as Count Sphere's foundation slipped away. The emergency session stretched into late afternoon, board members grilling him over the patent oversight, her patent, filed on her own time, her own equipment, beyond their grasp. Stocks at 13% down, Miguel updated at 3:30. Rumors spreading, clients asking questions. Sandra's day at Nexus surged forward, her first formal meeting with the innovation team at 3 p.m., engineers leaning in as she outlined the algorithm's next evolution, her voice steady, commanding the respect Apex had denied her. We're pushing efficiency beyond what Count Sphere ever dreamed, she said, her silver-streaked hair catching the light, her presence a beacon. Lila popped in at 4 o'clock, hesitant. Apex's CEO again, third call today. Sandra's smile was serene. Tell him legal's handling it. I'm booked. She turned back to her team, Miguel's latest text buzzing. All hands ended, Victor's a ghost, team's freaking out. Offers came through, we're in. She exhaled, the knot in her chest loosening. Her 6 engineers, her legacy. Secured with Nexus's offers, their resignations a quiet exodus Apex couldn't stop. By 5 p.m., the industry fallout intensified. 2 Count Sphere clients contacted Nexus about switching, their emails a lifeline she'd extended with her patent's leverage. Apex's stock closed at 17% down, Nexus up 18%. And Sandra stood at her window again, the city's dusk a golden canvas of her triumph. They're scrambling, Daniel said, stopping by with a grin. Legal's prepping terms, steep, with your name front and center. She nodded, her voice soft but firm. Let them sweat. They'll pay for what they missed. Her phone buzzed once more. Miguel. Victor's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow. Stocks tanking, clients bailing. She smiled, a quiet storm in her hazel eyes, and typed back, Good. See you Monday. Apex's fallout unleashed a reckoning she'd orchestrated. Friday's farewell, a stepping stone to Monday's dawn. Her patent a blade that cut deeper than they'd ever imagined. As she gathered her things, the city lights flickered on below, a new chapter glowing brighter than the one she'd left behind, her unseen leverage now a force they couldn't ignore. 2 Count Sphere clients had already reached out to Nexus, their inquiries a lifeline she'd extended with her patent's leverage, a blade Apex hadn't seen coming. Daniel Pierce had stopped by earlier, his grin wide as he'd said, They're scrambling. Legal's prepping terms, steep and public. She'd nodded, her voice firm. Let them sweat. They'll pay for what they missed. Now, as she gathered her purse, the weight of Friday's farewell, a box of photos, a Code Queen mug, an ironic award, shifted fully to Monday's dawn, her rise as CIO a beacon Apex couldn't dim. Tuesday morning broke with a crisp edge, the city waking to a new reality as Sandra stepped into Nexus's gleaming lobby. Miguel's updates had trickled in overnight. Board's furious, Victor's out, Evelyn too. Apex's emergency session had stretched into the early hours, their stock plummeting 23% by close, a hemorrhage triggered by her exit and the patent she'd claimed on her own time. She'd forwarded his text to Daniel, who'd replied, Phase 1 complete, beautifully executed. Now, as she rode the elevator to her office, her silver-streaked hair catching the light, she felt not just triumph, but a quiet satisfaction. Validation after years of watching Miles Grayson claim her work as his own, her name a footnote in his spotlight. Her phone buzzed at 9 a.m. Richard Donovan, Apex's new interim CEO, his email a stark contrast to Miles's desperation. Dr. Evans, congratulations on your position. I'm here to navigate this crisis. Can we discuss a fair licensing deal? We're ready to acknowledge your contributions publicly. She forwarded it to Nexus's legal team with a note, set terms, triple rate, full credit, and turned to her first task, leading her reassembled team. Miguel and her 6 engineers, their resignations a quiet exodus from Apex, joined her in Nexus's boardroom at 10 o'clock, their faces alight with relief and excitement. Chaos there was unreal, Miguel said, grinning. Victor's gone. Stock's a mess. We're all in. When do we start? Monday, Sandra replied, her voice steady. We're building beyond Count Sphere. They'll never catch us. The day surged forward, industry fallout intensifying as Apex's clients balked, 2 more contacting Nexus by noon. Their stock stabilized at a 20% loss, Nexus climbing another 8%. The market crowning Sandra's move a masterstroke. Tech journals ran headlines. Can Apex survive the algorithm crisis? And her inbox swelled with speaking requests. Her story, a beacon for innovators sidelined by corporate greed. At 1 p.m., Denise from Apex HR called, her voice faltering. Sandra, a patent mix-up, can we discuss ownership? Sandra's smile was serene. My agreement's clear. Work on my time, my gear is mine. Talk to Nexus Legal about licensing. The silence on the line spoke volumes. Apex's desperation a faint echo of Evelyn's nothing personal from Friday. By Wednesday, the tide turned fully. Apex's board conceded, announcing a licensing deal with Nexus, publicly crediting Dr. Sandra Evans as the algorithm's creator, terms steep and humbling. Sandra stood at Nexus's helm, her team thriving, their first product update, boosting efficiency 51%, drawing gasps in testing. Their loss, our gain, Daniel said, briefing her on Apex's scramble to rebuild, a years-long slog they couldn't afford. She'd shared her refinements, held back from Apex after that memo, with Nexus, her foresight a gift they'd wield to outpace the industry. At 3 p.m., Miguel grinned over video. Victor's exit speech was a train wreck, stock still sliding, we're free. Friday, a week from her Apex exit, Sandra keynoted the National Tech Conference, once a shadow in Miles's audience, now center stage. Innovation isn't faceless, she said, her voice steady. It's personal. Protect it, own it. Applause roared, young engineers approaching her later, inspired. Your story changed how I work, one said. A year later, her office overlooked a city she'd reshaped, Nexus surpassing Apex in valuation, her algorithm driving 3 groundbreaking products. Richard Donovan's reforms at Apex, modeled on her Nexus policies, came too late, their stock a shadow of its past. As Greg toasted her anniversary with champagne, to recognition, Sandra smiled, her triumph secure, her name etched where it belonged, on the tech she'd built, a legacy no one could erase. Sandra Evans gazed out from her Nexus tech perch, the city aglow beneath her, a testament to a fight won not with fury, but with intellect. Apex cast her aside, blind to the genius they had lost, but she turned their oversight into opportunity, her algorithm rewriting the rules. Her journey proves it. Setbacks are just setups for comebacks. True strength lies in knowing your value and claiming it. If Sandra's rise lit a fire in you, smash that subscribe button. More stories of courage and cunning are on the way. Drop a like, comment your thoughts, or where you're watching from. I'd love to hear. Let's keep cheering for those who defy the odds. Catch you in the next one.